In the heart of San Antonio, Texas, stands a historic monument revered for its role in the fight for independence, the Alamo. Its walls bear silent witness to a battle that shaped the course of history. But what if they could also speak of something more sinister? Hidden beneath the layers of valor and sacrifice lie stories of unexplainable phenomena, accounts of eerie apparitions and haunting whispers that drift through the halls as if the past refuses to rest. Today, we will delve into the haunted history of the Alamo, uncovering tales that blend the ferocity of war with the chilling presence of spirits that still linger. Some say these ghostly encounters are simply the residue of the intense emotions that grip this historic site, while others believe the spirits are those of the brave souls who perished, unable to move on. From mysterious lights to the spectral sounds of trumpets, these phenomena beg a question: can a place as scarred and blood-soaked as the Alamo ever truly find peace? Join us as we journey through the haunted corridors of history, uncovering the stories that refuse to fade. Story 1. The battle's unyielding legacy. It was the year 1836, a time when Texas stood at the precipice of revolution. The region, originally part of the Spanish Empire, had become a territory of Mexico after its independence in 1821. As American settlers poured into Texas, tensions grew between the Mexican government and the new Texan colonists. Discontent simmered as cultural and economic differences strained relationships, with the Texan settlers pushing for greater autonomy and rights. The conflict eventually erupted into full-scale rebellion, and the Alamo, a former Spanish mission, was transformed into a fortress. Strategically located, it became a flashpoint for the Texan struggle against the centralist policies of General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. While it was never meant to be a military installation, the Alamo was fortified by its defenders, who knew that it would be the last line of defense in their fight for independence. Among the defenders were legendary figures like Davy Crockett, a frontiersman and former Tennessee congressman known for his larger-than-life persona; William D. Travis, a passionate and ambitious lawyer-turned-soldier; and James Bowie, a man renowned for his skill with a knife and his fearless nature. Each brought his own story, his own reasons for being there, and a unique courage that would be etched into history. But beyond the fame were dozens of unnamed volunteers, farmers, ranchers, and settlers, who were willing to lay down their lives for the promise of freedom. Travis, the commanding officer, was just 26 years old. His boldness was evident in the letter he wrote on February 24, 1836, calling for reinforcements. To the people of Texas and all Americans in the world, it began. He finished with the immortal words, "Victory or death." It was a defiant statement of their commitment, even when they knew they were vastly outnumbered by the approaching Mexican forces. The siege began on February 23, 1836, with Santa Anna's army surrounding the Alamo. Over the next 13 days, the defenders endured near constant bombardment. Cannonballs thundered day and night, pounding the old mission's walls, and sleep became a rare luxury. Food and water supplies dwindled, and morale wavered under the strain of the relentless assault. The air was thick with gunpowder, and the noise was deafening, an unending cacophony of explosions, musket fire, and shouts. Eyewitnesses described scenes of unparalleled bravery. Crockett and his men, wielding their rifles with deadly precision, held off wave after wave of Mexican troops. Travis, ever the leader, rallied his men even when hope seemed lost, delivering impassioned speeches about honor and duty. Bowie, though bedridden due to illness, continued to direct his troops from his sick bed, pistol in hand, ready to fight until his last breath. The final assault came in the pre-dawn hours of March 6. Under the cover of darkness, Santa Anna's forces prepared for an all-out attack. 3 separate columns, consisting of thousands of soldiers, advanced on the Alamo's walls. The defenders, weary and outnumbered, fought back with a ferocity born of desperation. The battle raged for an hour, but the outcome was inevitable. Santa Anna's troops eventually breached the walls, and hand-to-hand combat ensued. The scene was chaotic and brutal. Men fought with knives, bayonets, and bare hands. The courtyard turned into a scene of carnage, with the defenders making their final stand, refusing to surrender. By the time the sun rose, the Alamo had fallen. Almost all of the Texan defenders, nearly 200 men, had been killed. Santa Anna ordered the bodies to be burned, leaving little trace of the battle that had raged just hours before. But the memory of their sacrifice would live on, inspiring the rallying cry, "Remember the Alamo." But the aftermath of this epic stand was not just a tale of heroism, it was the beginning of something eerie. Survivors and those who revisited the site spoke of strange occurrences, accounts of footsteps echoing through empty corridors, the sensation of being watched, and fleeting glimpses of figures dressed in 19th century garb became a common thread in the fabric of the Alamo's legacy. It seemed as though the souls who perished had not yet found peace, trapped within the confines of a fortress they once fought to defend. Tourists often report an inexplicable heaviness when they walk through the mission's chapel, as if the air itself carries the weight of sorrow. Some have felt a cold breath on their necks, even on the warmest days, or seen shadows darting across the walls where no light source exists. The most frequent tale is that of a soldier dressed in ragged attire, face expressionless, standing silently by the main entrance before fading into the night. Who is he? Some believe he is the spirit of William B. Travis, forever standing guard, ready to defend the Alamo even in death. In one particularly harrowing story, a group of visitors heard the faint sounds of a bugle playing the same tune over and over again. When they asked the tour guide about it, she turned pale and replied that no one else was there. The group quickly left, and the story became another addition to the growing legend of the Alamo's spectral army. Paranormal investigators have recorded several unexplained phenomena, from electronic voice phenomena, EVPs, that capture fake cries and orders in Spanish, to infrared footage showing moving cold spots in rooms that should have been empty. These pieces of evidence, while controversial, have only added to the mystery. Theories about the lingering spirits abound. Some believe the defenders' refusal to surrender left them bound to the site, eternally vigilant. Others suggest that the violent deaths of so many in such a short time created a rift, trapping the souls of the fallen in a perpetual state of battle. There are those who believe that the ghosts are not of the Texan defenders, but of Mexican soldiers who fell during the battle, spiritual casualties who have not yet completed their final march home. Story 2. The Mysterious Blue Light. The story of the mysterious blue light has been whispered among locals for over a century, tracing its origins back to the late 1800s. It was during this period that night watchmen and occasional passers-by began to report seeing a faint bluish glow emanating from the chapel's windows at odd hours of the night. Initially dismissed as tricks of the moonlight or the flickering lamps from nearby buildings, the accounts became more frequent and detailed, suggesting something far more supernatural. One of the earliest recorded sightings came from a night watchman named Alejandro Martinez, who worked at the Alamo in 1894. Martinez was an immigrant from Mexico, and he took pride in guarding the historic site, often patrolling its grounds during the quiet hours. One cold December night, while making his rounds, he noticed a soft blue light glowing from the direction of the chapel. Thinking it was a candle left burning, he moved closer to investigate. What he saw would haunt him for the rest of his life. As he approached the chapel, the light seemed to grow brighter, pulsating gently, almost as if it had a life of its own. When he peered through the window, he was shocked to see what appeared to be a figure kneeling at the altar, bathed in the bluish hue. The figure's head was bowed, as if in prayer, and it wore what looked like a worn, tattered uniform from the 1830s. Martinez froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew there should have been no one inside. The doors had been locked, and he was the only guard on duty. Suddenly, the figure lifted its head, and Martinez caught a glimpse of its face, or rather, the absence of one. The face was a dark, hollow void, as if shrouded in shadows. Terrified, Martinez stumbled backward, dropping his lantern. By the time he regained his composure and looked again, the light and the figure had vanished, leaving only the oppressive silence of the night. He would later describe the encounter to his fellow guards, who laughed it off as a dream or a trick of the light. But Martinez knew what he had seen, and he never forgot the chilling sense of emptiness he felt when he looked into the figure's face. Over the years, many others have claimed to witness the blue light. Tourists, security personnel, and even local residents have all reported seeing the faint glow, usually around midnight, hovering near the chapel's altar. What makes these accounts so compelling is the consistency in the descriptions. The light is always blue, always soft, and always appears to come from within the chapel, even when there is no known source for it. In 1932, a group of college students visiting San Antonio for a history project decided to camp near the Alamo, hoping to capture some paranormal activity on film. It was a warm summer night, and the air was still, almost suffocatingly so. Around midnight, one of the students noticed a flickering light through the chapel windows. Excitedly, they set up their equipment and began to record. What they captured on film remains one of the most debated pieces of paranormal footage to this day. The footage shows a faint blue light moving slowly around the chapel, hovering near the altar before fading out of sight. At one point, a shadowy figure can be seen passing through the light, but its features are indistinguishable. The students later claimed they heard faint whispers, though none of the audio devices picked up any sound. When they reviewed the footage, they were stunned to see that the light was visible, even though they could not find any logical explanation for its presence. The mysterious blue light has drawn the attention of numerous paranormal investigators over the years, each hoping to uncover the truth behind the phenomenon. Teams from all over the country have set up elaborate experiments inside the chapel, using everything from EMF detectors to thermal cameras. Yet, despite their efforts, the light remains elusive, appearing only when it chooses, and vanishing before anyone can get close enough to explain it. In one particularly notable investigation in 1978, a team led by renowned paranormal researcher Dr. Eleanor Bishop spent 3 nights inside the chapel, hoping to provoke a reaction from whatever entity was responsible for the light. They placed motion sensors around the perimeter, set up high-definition cameras, and even brought in a medium who claimed she could communicate with spirits. On the second night, at precisely 12:15 a.m., the sensors near the altar were triggered, and the cameras picked up a sudden burst of blue light, followed by a sharp drop in temperature. Dr. Bishop described the moment in her notes. It was as if a wave of cold swept through the chapel, almost like a gust of wind, though the air was completely still. The blue light appeared to swirl, pulsating in and out before disappearing entirely. The temperature dropped by nearly 15 degrees, and for a brief moment, felt a sense of overwhelming sadness, as though I was mourning something I couldn't quite remember. Despite the compelling evidence, Dr. Bishop and her team could not definitively explain the source of the light. The footage showed the light clearly, but there were no electrical systems nearby that could have caused it. The medium claimed to have felt the presence of multiple spirits, all of whom were connected to the battle, but she could not make out their names or communicate clearly with them. They were confused, lost, she said. It's as if they're stuck in a loop, replaying the same moments over and over again. Theories about the blue light's origin are as varied as they are intriguing. Some believe it is the spirit of a fallen soldier, perhaps one who sought refuge in the chapel during the final moments of the battle. Others suggest it could be a manifestation of energy, a kind of echo left behind by the traumatic events that unfolded on those grounds. Paranormal experts have posited that places with violent histories often retain imprints of past events, and the blue light could be one such imprint, a ghostly residue of the Alamo's tragic past. Skeptics, however, argue that the light could be a natural phenomenon. Some have suggested that it is caused by electrical charges in the air, possibly related to shifts in the weather or atmospheric pressure. Others believe it could be a trick of light caused by reflections from nearby buildings or passing cars, though this theory does not account for the light's appearance in the early years, long before modern lighting existed around the Alamo. One local legend claims that the light is the spirit of a young boy who died during the siege, though there is no historical evidence to support this story. According to the tale, the boy was hiding in the chapel when he was discovered by Mexican soldiers. Fearing for his life, he ran to the altar, clutching a small candle. He was shot before he could escape, and the candle's flame was extinguished, leaving behind only the faint blue glow that visitors now see. In 2019, a night watchman named Carl Lewis, who had been working at the Alamo for several years, experienced his own encounter with the blue light. By his own admission, Carl was a skeptic. He had heard the stories but never paid them much attention. Until one night, when he was making his rounds and saw the faint glow near the chapel doors. Assuming it was a trick of his tired eyes, he rubbed them and looked again. The light was still there, flickering gently, almost inviting him to come closer. As Carl approached, he felt a chill run down his spine. The air around him grew cooled, and the light seemed to pulse, growing brighter as he neared the entrance. When he was just a few feet away, the light suddenly vanished, and Carl was left standing in the dark, his heart pounding. He would later describe the experience as surreal, admitting that it was the first time he had felt genuinely scared during his time at the Alamo. "I don't know what it was," he said, "but it wasn't just a light. There was something alive about it, like it was trying to tell me something." The blue light remains one of the Alamo's most enduring mysteries. Despite decades of sightings and countless attempts to explain it, no one has been able to definitively answer what it is or why it appears. For some, it is a symbol of the Alamo's haunted past, a reminder of the lives lost and the sacrifices made. For others, it is a puzzle, a riddle that refuses to be solved, tantalizing in its elusiveness. But perhaps that is what makes the blue light so compelling. It is a mystery that cannot be captured or fully understood, much like the history of the Alamo itself. It beckons to those who see it, drawing them into the past, even if just for a moment, and leaving them with a sense of awe and wonder that lingers long after the light has faded. Story 3. The Phantom Trumpet. Among the eerie phenomena reported at the Alamo, the sound of a phantom trumpet is one of the most spine-chilling and mysterious. The story of this spectral music traces back to the traditions of warfare. In the early 19th century, trumpets were not just musical instruments, they were essential tools of communication on the battlefield. In the chaos of combat, when the air was thick with the sounds of gunfire and cannon blasts, a trumpet's clear, sharp call could pierce through the noise, signaling movements, attacks, and retreats. During the siege of the Alamo, trumpets played a vital role, and it was said that a hauntingly beautiful trumpet call marked the beginning of Santa Anna's final assault on March 6, 1836. The trumpeter who sounded that fateful call was a Mexican soldier whose name has been lost to history. According to legend, he was a young man, barely out of his teens, and this was his first real battle. Some say that he hesitated, his hands shaking as he raised the trumpet to his lips, knowing that the note he was about to play would unleash a wave of death upon the defenders. The call that followed was not the strong, commanding blast that Santa Anna had expected, but a softer, almost mournful melody, as if the trumpeter knew the devastation it would bring. Some accounts suggest that the boy was killed in the battle, shot by Texan defenders as he tried to retreat. Over the years, countless visitors to the Alamo have reported hearing the faint, ghostly notes of a trumpet playing late at night. Sound is often described as distant, almost as if it is coming from another time, yet it is clear and unmistakable. One local legend claims that on the eve of the battle's anniversary, the phantom trumpet can be heard echoing through the Alamo Plaza, reminiscent of the haunting call that once signaled the beginning of the siege. One such report comes from a couple visiting San Antonio in 1955. They were walking back to their hotel after a late dinner when they heard the distant sound of a trumpet. At first, they thought it might be a street musician, but as they walked closer to the source, they realized the sound was coming from the direction of the Alamo. The music was sad, almost dirge-like, and sent chills down their spines. When they reached the plaza, there was no one there, and the music abruptly stopped. They left San Antonio the next morning, but the memory of that eerie melody stayed with them for years. Another account, from 1973, involves a group of college students who had decided to spend the night near the Alamo as part of a dare. They were hoping to catch a glimpse of the rumored ghosts, but ended up experiencing something far more unsettling. Around 2 a.m., just as they were getting ready to pack up and leave, they heard the faint notes of a trumpet playing a slow, mournful tune. The sound seemed to come from all around them, Yet, when they tried to pinpoint its source, it eluded them. One of the students, a music major, recognized the melody as a military bugle call, though he couldn't identify which one. The group fled, too terrified to stay and investigate further. The phantom trumpet has been a point of fascination for paranormal investigators for decades. In 1988, a team from the Texas Paranormal Society set out to capture the mysterious sound. They chose the night of March 5th, the eve of the anniversary of the Alamo's fall, as it was known to be a particularly active time for ghost sightings. Armed with audio recorders, thermal cameras, and motion sensors, the team spent the night in silence waiting for something to happen. For hours, nothing occurred, and some of the investigators began to grow restless. But then, at exactly 4 a.m., they heard it. A faint, melancholy trumpet call echoing through the empty plaza. The team scrambled to record the sound, but as soon as the equipment was activated, the music stopped. One of the investigators, a veteran ghost hunter named Bill Hawkins, described the experience in his report. The sound was clear, as if the trumpet was right next to us, but when we tried to track it down, there was nothing there. It's as if the sound was playing just out of reach, taunting us. It was one of the most unsettling experiences I've ever had in all my years of paranormal research. The team managed to capture a brief snippet of the sound on one of their recorders, but the quality was poor, and skeptics quickly dismissed it as wind noise or interference. However, for those who were there was no doubt they had heard the phantom trumpet, and it had left an indelible mark on their memories. The legend of the phantom trumpet has become deeply embedded in the lore of the Alamo. It has inspired numerous books, documentaries, and even songs, with artists trying to capture the haunting beauty of the ghostly music. The sound has come to symbolize the tragic end of the battle, a reminder of the lives lost and the brutal reality of war. For many Texans, hearing the phantom trumpet is akin to a spiritual experience, a connection to the past that transcends time and space. Local historians have tried to debunk the story, suggesting that the sound might be caused by echoes from nearby music venues or passing cars, but these explanations fail to account for the consistency of the reports. The trumpet is always heard on quiet, still nights, often when the air is heavy and the atmosphere feels almost oppressive. It never lasts more than a few minutes, and it always seems to fade away, leaving behind a profound sense of sadness. In 2004, a musician named Luis Rivera attempted to recreate the phantom trumpet sound for a documentary about the Alamo's ghost stories. He spent weeks listening to recordings of bugle calls from the 19th century, trying to match the description provided by eyewitnesses. After numerous failed attempts, he finally managed to create a sound that was close, but he later admitted that it still didn't feel quite right. "There's something about the phantom trumpet that can't be replicated," Rivera said. "It's not just the notes, it's the emotion behind them. It's like the music is coming from another world." The most recent account of the phantom trumpet comes from 2018, when a security guard at a nearby museum heard the sound while taking a smoke break. It was late, around 3 a.m., and the plaza was empty. As he stood there, enjoying the quiet, he heard the faint notes of a trumpet drifting through the air. At first, he thought it was coming from a car radio or someone's phone, but as he listened more closely, he realized it was unlike anything he had ever heard. The melody was slow, sad, and hauntingly beautiful, and it seemed to come from everywhere at once. The guard, who asked to remain anonymous, described the experience. "It was like the music was wrapping around me, filling the whole space. I couldn't move, I just stood there listening, and for a moment, I felt like I was back in time, standing on the battlefield with those men. I don't know how else to describe it, but it felt heavy, like there was a weight to it, and then just as quickly as it started, it was gone." He later shared the story with his colleagues, who told him about the legend of the phantom trumpet. "I had heard about ghosts at the Alamo, but I never believed in that stuff," he said. "Now, I'm not so sure. I can't explain what I heard, but I know it wasn't normal." The phantom trumpet remains one of the Alamo's most enduring mysteries. For some, it is a reminder of the tragic events that unfolded there, the ghostly echo of the battle that refuses to fade. For others, it is a haunting piece of music, beautiful yet sad, captures the essence of the Alamo story. Whether it is the spirit of a Mexican soldier forced to relive his final moments, or simply a trick of the wind, the phantom trumpet continues to captivate the imagination of those who hear it. It serves as a reminder that history is never truly silent, and that the past has a way of reaching out to us, even in the most unexpected ways. As long as the Alamo stands, the trumpet will likely continue to sound, a spectral call that bridges the gap between the living and the dead, urging us to remember the sacrifices made and the lives lost. It is a piece of music that, like the Alamo itself, will never be forgotten. Story 4: The Lady in White. The legend of the Lady in White is perhaps the most tragic of all the Alamo's ghost stories. She is described as a beautiful, ethereal figure, dressed in a flowing white gown, who wanders the grounds of the Alamo at night. According to local lore, she was the wife of a Texan soldier who died during the siege, and her spirit has been searching for him ever since. Witnesses claim to have seen her near the old well, staring into the depths as if hoping to find a glimpse of her lost love. The story begins in the weeks leading up to the battle. The woman, whose name has been lost to history, was married to a young man who had joined the Texan forces. Despite her pleas, he insisted on joining the fight, believing it was his duty to defend their home. He promised her that he would return, and she clung to that hope even as the siege began. When the battle ended and her husband's name was not among the list of survivors, she refused to accept his death. She would visit the Alamo every night, searching for any sign of him, convinced that he was still there, somewhere. Over the years, countless people have reported seeing the Lady in White. Some have seen her standing by the well, her head bowed in sorrow. Others have spotted her walking along the walls, her gown billowing as if caught in a gentle breeze. Each sighting is different, yet they all share the same sense of profound sadness, as if the woman is forever mourning a loss that she cannot overcome. In the 1940s, a janitor at a nearby building claimed to have seen her while locking up for the night. He described her as the most beautiful yet saddest woman he had ever seen, standing near the well with her hands clasped in front of her. When he called out to her, she turned and slowly faded into the darkness. He later learned about the legend and was convinced that he had seen the famous ghost. The legend of the Lady in White has many versions, but they all center around the same theme: love, loss, and eternal longing. Some say she was a young bride who, upon hearing of the siege at the Alamo, set off from her home to find her husband, only to arrive too late. Others claim she was already in San Antonio, watching helplessly as the battle raged on, her heart breaking with every cannon blast. Regardless of the specifics, the core of the legend remains unchanged. She is a spirit driven by the hope of reuniting with a lost loved one, and that hope has kept her tied to the grounds of the Alamo for nearly 2 centuries. There are those who believe she was not just a victim of the battle's aftermath, but an active participant, aiding the wounded and tending to the injured within the mission's walls. Some say she was last seen during the final hours of the siege, her white dress stained with blood as she tried to care for the dying. Her refusal to leave, even as the Mexican forces breached the walls, marked her as a symbol of quiet defiance and unyielding love. To this day, her spirit is said to walk the grounds, searching for her beloved, forever caught in the moment of waiting for a reunion that never came. The Lady in White has been seen by many, from soldiers stationed at the Alamo during times of war to tourists visiting the site on a sunny afternoon. Each encounter varies, but there are eerie consistencies that make her legend one of the most compelling of all the Alamo's ghost stories. One of the earliest recorded sightings dates back to the late 1800s. A group of Union soldiers stationed near the Alamo during the post-Civil War Reconstruction period reported seeing a woman dressed in white walking along the perimeter of the old mission at dawn. At first, they assumed she was a local resident, perhaps mourning a lost loved one, but when they approached to ask if she needed help, she disappeared before their eyes, leaving nothing but the sound of distant, echoing footsteps. During the 1930s, a maintenance worker at the Alamo, named Jose Rodriguez, had a chilling encounter while making his rounds late one night. He was checking the locks on the doors when he heard the faint sound of crying coming from near the well. Curious but cautious, he walked over and there she was, a woman in a flowing white dress, her hair dark and long, covering her face as she sobbed quietly. Jose called out to her, asking if she was all right, but she didn't respond. As he got closer, the sobbing stopped abruptly. When he blinked, she was gone. The experience left him rattled and he refused to work night shifts for several months afterward. In 1982, a family visiting San Antonio decided to take a late-night stroll around the Alamo. They were not ghost hunters by any means, just tourists interested in the history of the place. The family's youngest daughter, who was 8 at the time, tugged on her mother's sleeve and pointed towards the chapel, insisting she saw a lady standing there, looking sad. The parents saw nothing, but the girl described the woman in detail. A long white dress, dark hair, and a sad smile. When the mother mentioned this to their tour guide the next day, she was told that her daughter had likely seen the famous lady in white, a story that had been passed down through generations. There is something profoundly sad about the story of the lady in white. She is not a vengeful spirit, nor does she seek to frighten those who encounter her. Instead, she seems to exist in a perpetual state of mourning, a ghost caught in a loop of grief and longing. For many who have seen her, the experience is not one of fear but of sympathy, as if they have stumbled upon a moment of deep, private sorrow. Psychologists who study paranormal experiences often speak of the concept of emotional imprints, where intense emotions, such as love, anger, or fear, leave a kind of residue on a location. In the case of the lady in white, it is believed that her grief was so powerful, her love so unwavering, that it transcended the boundaries of life and death, leaving behind a spectral echo that continues to manifest even after all these years. This idea has led some to speculate that those who encounter the lady in white are not seeing a ghost in the traditional sense, but rather a replay of an emotional moment that was too powerful to fade away. It is as if the grounds of the Alamo have become a kind of stage, replaying the same scene over and over again, the ghostly figure of the lady in white eternally searching, eternally waiting. The lady in white has become a symbol of the Alamo's haunted past, but her story is also a source of fascination for historians, folklorists, and paranormal enthusiasts. Some researchers believe that her legend has evolved over time, shaped by the changing perceptions of the Alamo's history. In the early days, she was seen as a tragic figure, a symbol of love lost to the ravages of war. But as ghost stories became more popular, her legend grew more elaborate, with some tales even suggesting that she possesses healing powers, appearing to those who are in need of comfort. There are also those who believe that the lady in white is not a single entity, but a manifestation of multiple spirits. Given the number of lives lost during the battle, it is not hard to imagine that the grief and loss felt by many could have coalesced into a single haunting presence. This would explain why she is sometimes seen near the well, other times by the chapel, and occasionally walking along the walls, as if she is searching every corner of the Alamo, hoping to find the one she lost. Paranormal investigators have attempted to make contact with the lady in white on numerous occasions, with varying degrees of success. One particularly famous investigation took place in 1996, when a team from a local television station conducted a live broadcast from the Alamo, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. During the broadcast, one of the investigators reported seeing a fake figure near the well, but when they tried to approach, the figure vanished. Although the cameras didn't catch the apparition, the audio equipment picked up a faint, whispering voice, repeating the same phrase over and over again, "Where are you?" The phrase became a sensation, and while some dismissed it as a trick of the wind, others saw it as a confirmation of the legend. To this day, the audio clip remains one of the most discussed pieces of paranormal evidence related to the Alamo. In recent years, sightings of the lady in white have continued, though they remain sporadic and unpredictable. One of the most recent encounters occurred in 2021, when a young couple visiting San Antonio decided to take a late-night tour of the Alamo grounds. They were walking near the chapel when the woman, Sarah, spotted what she thought was another visitor standing near the well, dressed in white. As she watched, the figure began to move slowly, almost gliding before disappearing behind the corner of the building. When Sarah told her partner what she had seen, he was skeptical, but as they turned to leave, they both heard a soft, echoing whisper, "Where are you?" Sarah later shared her experience on social media, where it quickly went viral, sparking renewed interest in the legend of the Lady in White. Many who read her account commented that they had had similar experiences, with some even claiming to have seen her as children, though they didn't realize what they had seen at the time. For some, these sightings are a reminder that the past is never truly gone, that the stories of the Alamo's defenders live on, not just in history books, but in the very fabric of the place itself. For others, the Lady in White is a comforting presence, a symbol of enduring love that transcends even death. The Lady in White remains one of the most enduring and poignant figures in the Alamo's haunted history. Her story is one of love and loss, of a spirit that refuses to let go, even after nearly 2 centuries. Whether she is a single lost soul searching for her beloved, or a manifestation of collective grief, she continues to captivate the imagination of those who encounter her, drawing them into her sorrowful, silent world. In a place defined by bravery and sacrifice, the Lady in White stands as a reminder of the personal stories that history often overlooks. The wives, mothers, and loved ones who waited for news that never came, who mourned in silence while the world moved on. Her legend is a testament to the enduring power of love, and the way it can bind us, even beyond the grave. As long as there are those who remember her story, the Lady in White will continue her search, her spectral form gliding through the shadows of the Alamo, forever seeking the one she lost, her whispered question echoing through the night, "Where are you?" The stories of the Alamo's spirits, from the phantom trumpet to the Lady in White, offer a glimpse into the complex emotional legacy of this historic site. They remind us that history is not just a collection of dates and events, but a tapestry of human experiences, filled with love, fear, sacrifice, and loss. The ghosts of the Alamo serve as a bridge between the past and the present, urging us to remember the sacrifices made on that hallowed ground, and the lives that were forever changed by the battle that took place there. Whether these stories are echoes of the past, manifestations of unresolved emotions, or simply legends passed down through the generations, they continue to draw people to the Alamo, each hoping to catch a glimpse of its haunted history. In the end, the Alamo stands not just as a symbol of resistance, but as a testament to the enduring human spirit, a spirit that refuses to be forgotten, even in death. As you leave the Alamo, take a moment to listen closely. You might hear the faint notes of a trumpet drifting on the wind, or catch a glimpse of a woman in white, her eyes searching the shadows. And if you do, know that you are not just witnessing a ghost story, but a piece of history that lives on, whispered through the ages, forever etched into the soul of the Alamo.